Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Teacher Talk, the podcast for teachers who are lifers but still want to have a life. I'm Jared, and as always, I'm joined by my partner, Johanna. Hello, Johanna.
Hi, Jared.
What are we going to talk about today?
We are going to have Season 2 be based off of feedback that we're getting from teachers, and one of those feedback topics is the anxiety at the start of the school year.
So, school starting anxiety. We have a whole dozen podcasts from last year that talk about how to start school.
We do, and I have re-listened to them, and there's a couple of bits of advice that I think were missing or weren't clear. But the main topic that we did not cover at all, which is extremely important, is how to manage that anxiety that comes with the start of the school year. It was implied, but it didn't directly
so we're going to
attack the beast.
Address anxiety head on.
Yes. Start of the school year anxiety.
Start of the school year anxiety?
Right.
Why would anyone be anxious about that?
I'm anxious about that.
Yeah, but why?
Because I don't know, you're so excited and yet you're so nervous because it's the unknown. I don't know. It's like going on a trip you've planned for forever and all you want is for it to be good. But who knows?
There's a lot of uncertainty.
Uncertainty. That's it. There's a lot of uncertainty.
Many variables that you don't control and that you don't have practice reacting to.
Right. And if you're new to the school, you don't know that you have the resources or where the resources come from. I mean, simple things like how do I print can all of a sudden take an hour and a half. And you don't have an hour and a half.
And if nothing else, you have a new couple dozen or more kids that are entirely new people.
You probably have hundreds of new kids, or you have, yes, a couple of dozen. It depends what you teach, but yes. I mean, there are some
That's a lot of variables right there.
Yes, because even if you're getting the same kids back, the summer makes a difference.
Because they've changed?
They have changed. For the good, for the bad, and for the weird. They have changed. They've grown up.
That's weird that kids would change as they age. Never thought of it that way.
You wouldn't think that essentially the 2.5 months of summer would make that big of a difference. Because you get them for 9 months, 10 months, and it's not like they come across as changing that much. They learn a lot, but their whole dynamic doesn't seem to change, but it's just that you don't notice it changing.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, because it's gradual, but then the 2 months or 3 months away, and you get that, you see how fast they're actually changing because you're not looking for
sure,
a little bit at a time.
Developed good habits or bad habits that drastically impact who they are. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, we've established you've got plenty of reasons for your anxiety.
Sure. It's normal and natural.
Yes.
I would be worried if I didn't feel anxious.
Anxiety is what properly harnessed is what helps us prepare for new and uncertain situations.
Oh, this makes sense.
Right?
Yes.
It's important to feel some anxiousness because it's what causes your consciousness to imagine scenarios and not go in totally without a plan for anything.
Correct. Okay.
But the problem is that it's too powerful in certain ways, and it perpetuates itself and causes you to actually perform or at least be unhappy more than you need to be.
Right. And the kids are so anxious too. It's just, it's a thing.
Okay, so what do we do?
Okay.
Cure us.
So the first thing I would say is that first episode and the second episode, third episode, those beginning episodes of season 1, I have to say, I re-listened to them and I felt helped with preparing for the start of the school year. There are good action steps you can take that will naturally decrease the anxiety of you and will decrease the anxiety of those you work with and the students that you have. So I would say step 1 is I was like on point. Like that was some pretty good advice from season 1. So if you're looking for specific action steps, that's where to find it.
Go back and listen to the first 3 or so episodes of this podcast.
Yes.
But you don't need to link because most people are going to be using the XML feed or whatever it is, and they can just go back to the bottom of their feed.
Okay. I did in the very last episode.
Figured out how to do links in the
It's not
show
that
notes.
I didn't know how. It's that I didn't know
But
if it was important. Like, why spend the time figuring that out if no one's going to use them?
Scroll down in your app and you can get to them.
Okay. So there's that. One of the bits of advice that I offer is to have the 4 checklists, which I still use. I used this year. I'm still using. I guess the start of the school year is still going on. But I wanted to add to that.
Remind us what the 4 checklists are.
So I make a checklist that's like that day, by the first day of school, by the first week of school, and then by the first quarter, semester, year. It depends on how your evaluation cycle / rotation of learners goes. And so as I hear something and I think, oh, that's a good idea during professional development, I put it on one of my lists. And so it lets me instantly table things that normally, at least in me, kind of create anxiety. Thinking, how do I implement this the first day? Nope, that's going on my year-long to-do list. I don't think about it anymore.
Yeah.
And then there's always screensaver mode where you hear things and you think I'm going to nod and smile and...
That's got nothing to do with the checklist, though.
It doesn't.
Okay.
But I guess it's like...
That's the things that doesn't make it to the checklist.
It's like the 5th checklist.
It's the 5th circular file checklist.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay. So I had an addition to that, which I use constantly, which is when I find that I'm not crossing things off my to-do list. Instead, all I'm doing is adding to my to-do list. Is I set a timer. I pick one thing on my to-do list and I might say to myself, well, this is going to take me an hour, but I don't want to think an hour in advance because I'll get sidetracked. For me, the perfect amount of time is 20 minutes. So I set a visual timer and then I take a task and I think, well, what does 20 minutes into this task look like? And I set a timer and I do just that. I only think 20 minutes in the future.
I don't totally get it.
I see this in people too. It's like the mountain is so big, you can't possibly just look down and see that all you have to do is take one step.
Yeah.
And so the timer and the planning of what I'm going to get done in those 20 minutes is simply me not looking at the mountain, me just looking down.
How do you eat an elephant?
Yes, correct. Start with one bite. Is that the answer?
Well, not just start, but yeah, one bite at a time.
One bite.
Just like everything, that's how you eat anything. It's just more of it.
But if I don't have a timer, if I don't have something to look at that 5 minutes in, I'm checking my email because I'm kind of still in summer mode, like I'm not good about my habits and routines, then the timer makes me go like, oh, now I only have 15 minutes to get this goal done. So for me, breaking tasks into 20 minutes and setting a visual timer is a huge help.
Because it helps you take that bite
Yes. It lets me take one step, and then I feel super good if I take that step before my timer goes off, and then I set a new goal, and I get to cross something off my list. And once the ball is rolling, then I don't need this anymore. But it can be really anxiety-inducing to think about the millions of things you want to get done.
Yeah, I got it. So you got a big task.
Huge.
On your
the first
to-do
day
list.
of school is coming. Yes. Huge.
And it feels like you're making no progress. You look at the thing, and it's like, well, I'm not going to get that done anyway. So it's
Right.
hard. It's hard to even start.
For me,
So you break your task on your to-do list down into 20-minute bites.
Right.
Set your visual timer, and then you can start crossing bites off of your to-do list and actually make progress towards getting it done instead of just stare at it about how impossible it is.
Right.
And
Correct.
then you find that as you get in the flow, you don't need to like break out the to-do list into bites. It'll just start happening.
Right. Or I might start feeling anxious about something that's going to happen in 2 days. That anxiety doesn't serve me any purpose. And the timer...
Because you're so 20-minute focused.
Yep. Just getting myself down into those 20-minute chunks is...
all you have to worry about.
Yeah. And then I can feel really good at the end of the day because I do have a big list of things I crossed
You
off.
really derive satisfaction from putting X's in boxes.
I think a lot of people do.
You definitely do.
I totally do. But when I teach kids, I'll tell you they do too. Like, it's not just me.
Okay.
Okay.
What else you got?
To not forget how focused and intense parents are that first week.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Super good.
Okay.
Super good. So when I talk about these to-do lists and I give ideas about how to structure the to-do list, but one thing I didn't make clear enough that is important is anything that connects to parent communication, you got to get that out there that first week if it's at all possible. There are some things that I can't get out the first week. But anything that you're like, gosh, I'll never get all these signature things back or whatever it is, they're focused and in it for the first week and then they drastically fall off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have kids, you know this because even like as a teacher, you're like, yeah, week 2, I start,
We had one day of school on a Friday. I'm already not paying attention.
No.
It's week 2 as far as I'm concerned. I'm done.
Come on now.
What?
You got to stick with it for like a first full week.
Yeah, that's a full week.
Anyway,
a full week ends on Friday.
This is the type of parent you're dealing with. They are hyper in that first week. So it is important to put anything that's...
Like what? Like what's a good thing to harness this paying attention for?
I have students take home a safety document that they have to get signed, and if I don't do it in the first week, it's going to be more work and effort for me to get home. Students who in the first week, I can tell we have like some growth to do concerning behavior. The first week, the behaviors are going to be pretty good. And so that first week is when I'm reaching out with positive experiences, like building those relationships with the parents that I know I'm going to need that relationship come like November, or I might be wrong, but
oh no, right?
Right. Oh no, I flooded the gates of something that wasn't necessary. But you're in your honeymoon phase, and so get those things should come first.
This all sounds like good stuff, but how does it help you with anxiety?
Okay, that's a good question. So
you're off theme.
I'm not off theme. I'm not off of clarity.
Okay.
So a lot of our anxiety is because we don't know our students.
Okay.
And the sooner we know our students, then the less anxious we become because at least we know what is needed. We know their learning needs. We know their quirk needs. We know their behavior needs. And so if you have those positive interactions with parents, it will cause your anxiety to go down because it makes you feel like you have more resources available.
All right, so I show up in the room and I see Johnny. I'm like, oh, this is bad news. This is going to be trouble. Now I'm anxious about when this is going to go off the tracks. It's the first week, so like nothing really bad happens yet.
And if you want specifics on how to make sure nothing really bad happens, then go back to the first, I would say the first 10 episodes. We cover behavior and how to make sure that all that gets organized. Yes.
But instead of being worried about what happens once Johnny does go off the rails, use the hyper-focused parent first week to build the relationship with Johnny's guardians so that then you won't worry as much about what you'll have to do once a discipline or some behavior issue comes up later, because you'll be more confident in that relationship and you won't worry about it as much.
Right. Like during that first couple of days, you're doing these little micro experiences where you're also getting a teeny gauge. I make them fun. I make them interactive, right? We're really focused on building the habits and routines of the classroom, but it's getting me a cue in on where kind of the kid is probably at academically. And so if I realize that I have someone that's like super high, or I have someone who I'm worried might be super low, or I have data that shows they might be super low, like now's the time to create that relationship, because it will decrease your anxiety to know like the parent and I are on the same team.
You're going to be worried about, I mean, it's another big uncertainty is how will the parents react when you need intervention.
Right.
And you won't worry about it as much if you've already built a relationship while the time to build a relationship was easiest.
Yes. Your anxiety will decrease so much if you feel like you and the parent are going to work as a team because you've had that positive experience or those positive experiences.
I'm sorry, I doubted you. That you turned me around on that. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, in my head, I was communicating that, but this is why I need you. It's because things stay inside there sometimes.
I'm glad I can contribute something.
You do.
What do you got anything else?
You get a lot of positive feedback, actually.
Thank you, listeners. What do you got any other anxiety tips from your review of the first few episodes?
Okay, so the other thing I think I miscommunicate that's not fair is I am a huge advocate of getting to school on time, leaving school on time, and not working overtime. But that first week of school, that's not always practical. Oh, I know. So I forgot that I do this until I started doing it. And then I was like, oh, Johanna, I make a budget, like an overtime budget for myself. And if I'm in a brand new school, obviously that overtime budget's going to be bigger than if I've been at that school a while, same with the grade or the curriculum or whatever it is. But I do make an overtime budget to allot out that first week or two.
Roughly how many hours do you put in your budget?
As little as possible.
Like 20?
No.
If you were new, would you maybe do 20?
Probably. That's fair.
20, and then you spend it in the first 2 weeks when it's the most valuable?
Yes.
But the idea, I'm going to guess the idea of the budget is like you have this bank of hours, because otherwise it'll be really easy to just slip into allowing that to become your regular work schedule.
Correct.
And you'll just do it because that's what you always do. But no, it's an 8-hour workday. But when in this valuable first week where the parents are listening and stuff, and you're able to just set the inertia of the way that the room is going to run, it's worth, for your happiness, investing a little bit of extra time, but like from a bank. And then once that's used up, you go back to working when you're supposed to.
I actually have an app on my phone, and I use it for other contracting work that I do, but I literally punch a clock and punch it out. And it's just about keeping me very cognizant of the choices I'm making. And it causes me to really ask, is this something that has to be done? Or does it have to be done this way? Or is there someone else that could do this for me? And it's okay if what I say is, nope, it's just better off if I do it. I'll do it better. I'll do it faster. It's less work, whatever. But I need to not build that habit.
And the budget, the bank helps you not fall into the habit.
Right. It makes me feel very aware. Yeah.
Good.
Okay. So, and maybe if I was a first-year teacher,
you'd have a bigger bank.
Or maybe I always need a little bit of a bank. But just forcing yourself to pay attention to the choices that you are making when it comes to working overtime will help make sure that this isn't something that you...
Don't just fall into it. Be very conscious of any extra time that you put in. So
I have...
You're deciding when you push your little timer or not, is this really worth
without even skipping a beat, you can make teaching a 60 to 80 hour week job and you still won't have everything done you want done. That's the thing, is you'll work that hard and you still won't feel good enough.
Right.
And then you'll be burnt out and then you won't be any help to anyone.
So don't do that.
Don't do that.
Listen to the podcast.
Listen. Yes. I'm not kidding, Jared.
You still want to have a life,
I actually
right?
saved myself time by listening to some, and I'm like, yes, that's because I feel like the start of the school year happens. It's kind of like when you start with kindergarten. It's like I forget like just how little kindergartners are that first couple of weeks. Like I forget. And so I then have to remember, and then I have to be like, oh yeah, this is the way I did that. Whereas now I am helping myself. Like, I am not having to relearn any lessons.
Well, good.
I know.
The system works.
The system.
Should we recap the anxiety stuff? That's
Yes.
3 things. So that makes, it's like kind of neat with 3. Everyone likes 3 things.
Oh, really? Okay, Go for it.
Anxiety. So as we've just finished talking about, go back and listen to the start of school episodes from the beginning of the podcast, way down at the bottom in episode 1, and then just keep going. You talked about your 4 checklists,
Yes.
and you talked about the problem of feeling like you're adding to checklists but never crossing anything out, and then it builds up to this impossible task that you definitely don't have time to do.
Yep.
And that creates anxiety. Of course it would. So what you do is decide what's a subtask, a bite of one of the things I could accomplish in 20 minutes. Write that down, set a visual timer for 20 minutes, and then do that thing.
Correct.
And this turns your task into achievable things. Allows you to only focus on the next 20 minutes and not worry about tomorrow or a week from now or your goals for the school year, which is part of what makes you feel like everything's impossible. You just decided this 20-minute thing was possible, and then you did it.
Correct.
And you keep doing that until
It feels so good.
It feels good. And
Feels good.
And keep doing it for as long as it takes. And you expect that most people will get momentum, or the tasks will be broken down far enough where it doesn't seem impossible anymore, and then you can just finish it.
Literally what happened was day 1 of my teaching like work days this year. All I did day 1 was make the list longer. And then day 2, I was like, wait, I remember the timer. Oh my gosh, the stuff I got done in day 2, even though I had meetings. So I really only had like half the amount of work time I normally had. I got, 10 times more done. It was crazy the amount I could get done.
The power of the timer. How do you eat an elephant?
That's right.
Don't forget how focused parents are the first week. It's a good time to get signed forms done. I think I remember you talking about like even your field trip from the end of the year. If you get the signed permission forms in the first week.
Or if you need your volunteers.
Yeah, classroom volunteers.
Like if they're hard for you to get and it's essential that you get, back to school night, it's perfect.
But then a source of your anxiety, especially once you see the kids, is you're going to have parent talks at some point because of behavior or education and the interventions that are needed. And that's going to be a source of anxiety because you get these stranger people who you don't know how are going to react to that conversation. But if you harness the hyper-focused good times of the first week, you'll see where your trouble spots might be, and then use that first week to establish a relationship. Nothing bad has happened, but you can lay the groundwork for knowing the person that you think you might need to talk to about a behavior or education thing sometime down the road, and it'll be much less of a source of anxiety because you know that person a little bit.
Correct.
And then remember that the whole podcast lied to you, and you can't just work during contract time. So even Johanna has
Even me.
an overtime budget.
I do.
But the point is to be super conscious of exactly how much overtime you're putting in. The first week's a good time to do it because stuff like the parents being focused is extremely valuable.
It makes it less work teaching the rest of the year if you can just...
right foot things.
Yes. Uh-huh.
But create a budget of 10, 20 hours or something, whatever.
I try and work with a
as
lot
small
less
as
than
possible.
that, but as small as possible.
And then ask yourself as you're spending it, track it with an app or with the timer or something, and say, is this really better for me than not doing it? And don't exceed your budget, because otherwise you'll fall into a trap. 50 or 60 or 70 hours is just what you work because that's what you worked last week.
Well, you'll start creating like lesson plans. You'll start creating classroom procedures that require you to work that much.
Sure. Yeah.
Like,
you'll fill your time if you let it expand that.
You will fill your time, and then you'll always have to fill your time because you created systems that required you to use that much time.
But I'll be a better teacher then.
No.
Well, you might be
You
a little
will.
bit better for
That's
like
true.
a year.
You will be a good teacher until all of a sudden you're not.
Right.
I mean, it's like sleep deprivation. Eventually, you're going to fall asleep
You can be
when
very
you don't want
productive
to.
if you never sleep.
Until all of a sudden you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Johanna.
Thank you, Jared.
Johanna, do you get questions from listeners ever?
Yes, we do.
How do those listeners send you questions?
They send us an email.
Where does that email go?
teachertalk4teachers@gmail.com.
But wait, what kind of 4? How do I do 4?
All of the 4s. They can do a number 4. They can write the word FOR, or they can do FOUR, even though that one doesn't quite make sense.
Well, perfect. teachertalk4teachers@gmail.com.
Yes.
Thank you, Johanna.
Thank you, Jared.
Teacher Talk, the podcast for teachers who are lifers but still want to have a life.